All right, so we're a little less than a week into free agency now, so let's do the 7 winners so far in free agency. Obviously, this is all subject to change if more moves happen, but as of right now, let's just get into it. Starting off in no particular order. The Bengals to me are a winner this free agency period so far. It's not necessarily that they've done a ton. Again, this isn't a team that had no cap space. They certainly had a decent chunk of cap space, but they're the Bengals. They don't always love to go out and make these splash signings, although that started to change a little bit. With the Trey Hendrickson move, they now have Orlando Brown Jr., which is a very fascinating one. And I love this move because I think they're getting a star player for significantly less money than we were all expecting. I think we were expecting closer to the $23 million range. Ends up going for 4 years, $64 million. That's just $16 million a year. That one move is what's putting them on this list. Again, another smaller move I liked was keeping Jermaine Pratt, getting a guy who knows the system, 3 years, $21 million. I think that's a solid contract as well. But it's really getting Orlando Brown Jr. and keeping him in the getting him in the building as someone who I think is a very good tackle, and they need a franchise left tackle. They now finally have it. They've been trying to get one for a while. Jonah Williams, they thought, was that guy. Now he's requested a trade, but I'm going to give the Bengals, going to put them as one of these 7 winners here. Next up, it's the New York Jets. And can you guess why they are on this list? Yes, you can. It's obviously because, listen, getting an elite quarterback is so difficult to do. And say what you want about Aaron Rodgers, sure, I don't know, he likes to hang out in darkness. He might retire next year because he apparently almost retired this offseason, said he was 90% sure he was going to retire before he went into the darkness. Whatever. You're getting elite quarterback play. That's a win. It just is. It makes you winners. The Jets were nothing if they didn't get a good quarterback to join them. They don't just get a good quarterback. They get a 3-time MVP, and coming off of, not this season, this most previous season, but the previous 2 years winning back-to-back MVPs. So getting him in the building, listen, the Jets are contenders. We weren't talking about them as contenders prior to this move. Also, again, some smaller things. They re-signed Quincy Williams for 3 years, $18 million. They keep Greg Zuerlein. They added Chuck Clark, who I think is a good safety for them. Kept Solomon Thomas and also added Alan Lazard. I don't love that contract, if I'm being honest. 4 years, $44 million. I don't know if Alan Lazard, he's a fine player. Fine role player. I don't know if he's worth that much, but again, part of that probably is to appease Aaron Rodgers, which sometimes you got to do. And again, getting the star quarterback, it makes them winners. How big of winners will they be? I don't know. But as of right now, they're contenders now. So you got to put them in the winner category, I think. Next up on the list is the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears here are winners. They trade the first overall pick and get a really good haul back. I love the idea of getting DJ Moore in that trade because they desperately need receiver help. I thought that was very smart, and you don't need a quarterback, so get as much value as you can. I didn't think it was like a fleecing the way some people phrase it as. I think that's just the value you get when you trade from 1 to 9, and why it was the smart move to trade from 1 to 9, in my opinion. Also done some smaller moves that I think have been, I've been a fan of, although I understand why some people could be detractors. I like the TJ Edwards and Nate Davis signings. I think they're good players that they're getting for affordable value. The Jermaine Edmonds one, it's just I think that there's 2 ways to take the discussion. Some people have talked about why not just keep Roquan Smith. I actually think it's a great move to not keep Roquan Smith and get Edmonds instead. I think for what the Bears are trying to do, I think Edmonds fits that system far better than Roquan does. I think Roquan has been very good with the Ravens, but he's very good because the Ravens use him completely differently than how the Bears would. So, getting someone who fits your scheme better, and I think is the better player, period, in Edmonds, although I get that that's a hot take. A lot of people like Roquan better. There are different play styles. It depends on what you value. But, getting someone who certainly fits what they're trying to do better. They got a 2nd-round pick when they traded Roquan Smith, and they're paying Edmonds less money. That feels like a great, kind of shift there. The question is, should you be kind of building your defense from the linebackers first? It's a question mark because I don't know how much better it makes you right now. But if you can build up the front seven around those two guys, build up the defensive line, I should say, they got a lot of work to do defensively. But the way I see it, it's a start, and they have plenty of draft capital to do it. So I like the move personally, but I can understand why it's not everyone's cup of tea. Next up, I'm going to go with the team that traded for the first overall pick, the Carolina Panthers. As I teased earlier, everyone kind of talked about, it's what a fleecing by the Cincinnati Bengals. I really don't see it that way. I really don't. I think that's the price it takes to trade up to number one, and really, I think, analytics show that, trading up for a quarterback is fine. When you trade up for a non-quarterback, it's almost always a disaster. But trading up that far for a quarterback, it's a fine move. It's not a great thing that you should always do, but it's something that you can do if you want to. I think that's the value it takes to trade up that far, personally. And so, get a quarterback. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. You never know with this stuff. It's always a guessing game, but the only way to, you still have to get a guess in, right? Yes, it's a lottery, but you still have to get a ticket, and this is their way of getting a ticket getting the best ticket by getting a quarterback and seeing how it works out. Made some smaller moves as well in free agency that I think are pretty good moves. Von Bell should be good in that secondary. Shy Tuttle should be an effective player for them. Andy Dalton as kind of a bridge quarterback, which I think should help. Hayden Hurst, who should be a kind of a good safety blanket for whichever quarterback it is they end up drafting first overall, or maybe even second overall if they trade back a spot, which has been talked about. Also, Miles Sanders should be an effective running back. I don't know if you need to go out and pay a running back in this situation, but they want a good running back. So there you go. Also, Bradley Bozeman, a 3-year, $18 million deal. So they're slowly improving, adding depth to a team roster that's not necessarily terrible outside of the quarterback position. They get the first overall pick. Panthers, if they can get solid quarterback play next year, there's a chance they could be a playoff team in a weak division. There really is. Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles, which is another one where, listen, I got to explain why I have the Eagles here, because the Eagles have lost a good amount of talent in this offseason, but they were going to. We knew that going in, and that's kind of how I view it, is, heading into the offseason, we viewed all these teams in select areas. We felt like, okay, the Eagles, they're going to lose a lot of defensive players. So starting from there, who has been winners and losers since that point? I think the Eagles have been winners since that point because of how they've kept a lot of the important pieces in the building. They end up, a lot of people thought Darius Slay was going to be out of the building. Nope, they keep him. It seemed like he was going to be gone. They end up keeping him. They re-signed James Bradberry and keep Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham. So while they still lost, linebackers, which is something they have to work on, that is something they're going to have to deal with, they were able to kind of keep a lot of the other key pieces, lose Miles Sanders, but they add Rashad Penny, who might be just as good in that system. They keep Jason Kelce, which is a huge move, I think, and then a couple of interesting flyers, like getting Greedy Williams and Marcus Mariota in the building. Fascinated to see how those two signings will work, but they did take a step back, but I thought they might take 2 or 3 steps back heading into this offseason, so that's why I'm still considering them winners. Next up, the Dolphins, who I don't know how long I have to spend on this team because it really is one big move, but there's a couple other smaller ones that I like that came in here as well. So the Jalen Ramsey move is why the Dolphins are winners. Really, that paired with the Vic Fangio addition to being their defensive coordinator, a guy who many people view to be one of, if not the best defensive coordinator in football, and even his head coaching tenure, I don't think was a disaster necessarily. Didn't work out, but they never got the quarterback situation under control. It's probably not going to work out if you don't. But adding Jalen Ramsey to a defense that desperately could use secondary help last year, it struggled. If Xavier Howard can return to form and Jalen Ramsey is Jalen Ramsey, this could be an elite secondary. They also made some interesting littler moves, things like, Mike White taking a flyer on him. I'm just fascinated by that. Has played well at times in a similar system, also played poorly at times in a similar system. We'll see how it works out if he has to play, if Tua goes down. Also, I like the Deshaun Elliott and Braxton Berrios signings, 2 guys who I think can can play and are getting very little money. So big fans of those, but really it's the Ramsey one that makes them winners for me. Finally, I'm going to the Buccaneers here. Again, a team that has taken a step back and we knew would take a step back. Losing Tom Brady, they're a different team now. But in a situation where, Kyle and I both had them as a team 32nd most likely to win the Super Bowl next year, I think that they're better than that now. They've kept a lot of talent that we assumed they were losing, keeping Levante David and Jamel Dean and getting pretty extreme hometown discounts on both of those signings. Also keeping Anthony Nelson for a reasonable deal. He's been a very effective rotational pass rusher for them. Aaron Stinney is a guy who was the starting guard when they won the Super Bowl. Getting him back should be an interesting flyer. And the Baker Mayfield one is the one that everyone's going to talk about. But, it's fascinating. There's upside there, I think. We've seen him play well in the past, and if it sucks, it's okay, because you're kind of playing with house money at this point. It's supposed to be a rebuilding year, but I could see them being surprisingly competent. Also adding Chase Edmonds, he'll probably immediately be running back 1, so getting some value there. But yeah, those are my 7 winners so far. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.